Have you ever left work feeling exhausted, not just from the workload, but from the people around you? Like no matter how hard you try, something or someone just keeps draining your energy. You're not alone. Toxic coworkers are everywhere, and the worst part? They don't always announce themselves with dramatic outbursts or obvious sabotage. Sometimes, their manipulation is so subtle you don't even realize it's happening until you're stuck in a cycle of self-doubt, frustration, or burnout. That's why today, we're talking about the 5 most common ways toxic coworkers manipulate people in the office, especially new employees, and, more importantly, how you can stop them. Because you deserve a workplace where you feel respected, valued, and in control of your own energy. Now, before we dive in, let's be clear. This isn't about blaming or shaming anyone. It's about recognizing unhealthy patterns so you can protect your peace and thrive in your career. Toxic behavior often flies under the radar, disguised as just how things are or office politics. But once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's when you take your power back. So, let's start with the first tactic toxic coworkers use, the guilt trip. You know the type. They're the ones who always frame their requests in a way that makes saying no feel like you're letting them down. Maybe they say things like, "I guess I'll just have to stay late and do it myself," with a heavy sigh, or "I thought I could count on you." Suddenly, you're agreeing to tasks outside your role, working extra hours, or covering for their lack of planning, all because they've made you feel responsible for their struggles. Here's the thing, healthy coworkers respect boundaries. They don't weaponize guilt to get their way. So how do you stop this? First, recognize when it's happening. If you feel a pang of obligation every time they ask for something, pause. Ask yourself, is this actually my responsibility, or am I being manipulated into thinking it is? Then, practice polite but firm responses like, "I understand this is important, but I have my own priorities to focus on right now." You don't owe them an apology for protecting your time. The second tactic is backhanded compliments. These are the comments that sound like praise on the surface but leave you feeling strangely insulted. Maybe after a presentation, a coworker says, "Wow, you sounded so confident, I didn't expect that from you." Or they compliment your outfit while adding, "I could never pull that off, but it works for you." These remarks are designed to undermine your confidence while keeping up appearances. The person delivering them gets to play innocent, "I was just being nice." But the effect is anything but nice. The best way to handle this? Call it out, calmly and directly. A simple, "What do you mean by that?" forces them to explain their compliment, and most of the time, they'll backtrack. If they don't, you've just revealed their true colors to everyone listening. Now, let's talk about selective exclusion, when a coworker deliberately leaves you out of important emails, meetings, or conversations, then acts like it was an accident. "Oh, you didn't get the invite? Weird, I thought you were copied." This tactic keeps you out of the loop, making you look uninformed or unreliable. If this happens once, it might genuinely be a mistake. But if it's a pattern, it's manipulation. Start documenting these incidents, forward those missing emails to a personal folder, note the dates of excluded meetings. Then, address it professionally. "I've noticed I wasn't included in the last few project updates. Can we make sure I'm on the distribution list moving forward?" If it continues, escalate it to your manager. You have a right to the information you need to do your job. These are just the first few tactics, but already, you might be recognizing some familiar behaviors. In the next part, we'll dig into even sneakier forms of manipulation, like how toxic coworkers play the victim and gaslight you into doubting your own memory, and how to shut them down for good. Because here's the truth, you don't have to play their games. And once you know the rules, you can change the entire dynamic. So now you know the signs of guilt tripping, backhanded compliments, and selective exclusion. But toxic coworkers have a few more tricks up their sleeves, and some of them are so subtle, they can make you question your own reality. Let's start with the perpetual victim. This is the coworker who always has a reason why nothing is their fault. Missed a deadline? The system was down, and no one told me. Dropped the ball on a project? I had so much on my plate, why didn't anyone help me? They spin every situation to make themselves the helpless martyr, and if you challenge them, suddenly you're the bad guy for not being understanding. The problem with this behavior is that it creates a culture where accountability disappears. Workplaces thrive on mutual responsibility, but the perpetual victim turns everything into a blame game. So how do you deal with them? First, don't feed into their drama. When they start playing the victim, respond with neutral, fact-based language. I understand there were challenges, but moving forward, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? This redirects the conversation to solutions instead of excuses. And if they try to rope you into their narrative, you get it, right? It's not my fault. Gently but firmly set a boundary. I'm focused on what we can control now. Now, let's talk about something even more insidious: gaslighting. This is when a coworker manipulates you into doubting your own memory, perception, or sanity. For example, maybe you clearly remember them agreeing to handle a task, but later they say, "I never said that." You must have misunderstood. Or perhaps they downplay something hurtful they did. "I was just joking, you're way too sensitive." Over time, this can make you second-guess everything, eroding your confidence. Gaslighting is dangerous because it's so hard to spot. The key is to trust your instincts. If you find yourself constantly questioning whether you're the problem, that's a red flag. Start documenting interactions. Send follow-up emails summarizing verbal agreements. Per our conversation, you'll take care of X by Friday, so there's a paper trail. And if they try to rewrite history, calmly hold your ground. "I remember it differently, but let's focus on the solution now." Another common tactic? The false ally. This is the coworker who acts like your biggest supporter, to your face, but then undermines you behind your back. Maybe they casually mention to the boss that you seemed stressed during a project, or they helpfully point out your minor mistakes in group chats. When confronted, they play innocent. "I was just looking out for you." This one's tricky because it feels like betrayal. The best defense? Limit what you share with them. Keep conversations professional and vague. If they fish for gossip, "Ugh, the boss is being so unreasonable, right?" Don't take the bait. Instead, say something like, "I'm just focusing on doing my best." And if you hear they've been talking about you, address it head on. "I heard you mentioned X in the meeting. Next time, I'd appreciate it if you came to me directly." At this point, you might be thinking, "Wow, workplaces can be brutal." But here's the good news: once you recognize these behaviors, they lose their power. Toxic people rely on you not noticing what they're doing. When you do, their games fall apart. In the final part, we'll cover the last manipulation tactic, the credit stealer, plus the most important step of all: how to protect your mental health and rise above office toxicity without becoming cynical or burned out. Because you can win this game by refusing to play. Alright, we've made it to the final manipulation tactic, and this one stings. Meet the credit stealer. This is the coworker who magically turns your hard work into their success. Maybe you stayed late to finish a report, only to hear them presented in a meeting as we did it. Or perhaps they forget to include your name on a project you spearheaded. When called out, they brush it off. "Oh, of course you helped. I just figured everyone knew." This tactic isn't just annoying, it can derail your career. If leaders don't know your contributions, you miss out on raises, promotions, and opportunities. So how do you stop it? First, own your work loudly. Send updates directly to your manager. "Just wrapped up the financial analysis. Let me know if you'd like me to present it next week." In meetings, politely interject, "I'm glad you brought up the findings. I actually noticed X trend while compiling the data." And if someone consistently takes credit, start CCing stakeholders on your work emails so there's no ambiguity. Now, let's zoom out. Knowing these 5 tactics, guilt tripping, backhanded compliments, selective exclusion, playing the victim, gaslighting, false allies, and credit stealing, is only half the battle. The real key is protecting your energy. Toxic coworkers want you stressed, distracted, and reactive. The less you engage, the less power they have. Here's how to stay unshaken. 1. Document everything. Save emails, Slack messages, and meeting notes. If manipulation escalates, you'll have proof. 2. Build alliances. Cultivate relationships with coworkers who do operate with integrity. They'll have your back. 3. Master the art of detachment. When a toxic person tries to provoke you, imagine their words bouncing off like rain on a windshield. Respond politely, then move on. 4. Know when to escalate. If someone's behavior is harming your work or mental health, go to HR or your manager. You don't have to suffer in silence. Finally, remember, you set the standard for how others treat you. If you tolerate manipulation, it continues. If you calmly enforce boundaries, either the behavior stops or the person removes themselves from your orbit. So the next time a coworker tries to guilt trip you, gaslight you, or steal your shine, smile and think, nice try. But I'm playing a different game. If you've dealt with toxic coworkers, drop a comment below. What tactics did they use, and how did you handle it? Let's learn from each other. And if this video helped, hit like, subscribe, and let's make workplaces healthier, one boundary at a time. You've got this. Now go out there and own your power.